right now, what we do here is, guys, we do the top 10 hottest comics of the week based off of Covrprice's data. That is right. The hottest comics of the week. Based on data, not speculation, guys. Covrprice releases their top 10 hottest comics on Monday. Our live show is on Friday. What we like to do is we like to go over quickly the top 10 hottest comics, but Chris here dives into the 3 most interesting books off of that list. And he's going to do it again today. And we're going to have insight from Rock and Robbie, from pop culture philosophers. That is right. So we're just going to get into it, guys. Are we ready? Can I get a consensus?
We're ready.
We're ready. Let's just do it. All right, here we go, guys. At number 10, Superman. Number 4, that is right, the first appearance of Bloodsport, who will be appearing in the Suicide Squad film. At number 9, we have Harley Quinn. Number 1, the Yoshitaka Amano Lunar Thank You variant. This was in the top 10 last week, by the way. At number 8, we have X-Men. Number 4, the first appearance of Omega Red. Number 7 is Truth, Red, White, and Black. If you guys are number 1, if you guys aren't watching Falcon and Winter Soldier, I don't know what's wrong with you, but this will also explain why this is on here. I haven't seen the latest episode. No spoilers, please. Number 6, The Ultimates. Number 1, again, this has a lot to do with episode 3 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. At number 5, we have Thundercats. Number 1, that is right. The director from Godzilla vs. Kong is attached to direct a Thundercats film, which he's been preparing for his whole life. We talked about that last week. I would be super psyched, but that's why this thing has jumped up. Number 4 is Thundercats 0. I am not sure why this jumped up, but obviously it has something to do with the Thundercats potential movie news. At number 3 of it, Uncanny X-Men, number 282. The first cameo, first cover of Bishop. A lot of speculation going on with Bishop in the MCU. He has made an appearance on film in X-Men Days of Future Past, and I liked him, actually. Number 2, we have Strange Tales, number 179. The first appearance of Pit the Troll, Warlock's good buddy, who is Chris's good buddy. True story. At number 1, we have Shadecraft. Number 1. This book just released this past week. I am confused as to why this is on here and why it's number 1. I have an issue myself. I'm super psyched. But Chris, let's just, interesting list. Actually, Chris, we have a guest. Let's let him speak first. Robbie, what do you think of that list? Just overall, just quick thoughts.
I'm very puzzled by the Bishop and the Omega Red because they're not rare. Like, those things are so easy to find, and it's like you couldn't give those away over the last 30 years. So it's so wild. And the Bishop was always like a $10 to $12, but it's been that way for like 25 years. So it's cool though. And I love seeing Bishop and Omega Red get the love because I love those characters. And I think that maybe the speculations on the idea that, obviously all these mutants are able to be in it, but it's way harder to find an X-Men number 1 or a giant size X-Men number 1 or a Hulk 181. And it's way easy to find an X-Men 4 and the Uncanny or whatever. Shadecraft is interesting as well. And I'm so proud of Bloodsport because when I was growing up reading, it was the John Byrne Superman that really sucked me in at first.
Me too.
And I love that character. I love that issue in particular. So hell yeah. And yeah, that Harley cover, that's pretty dope.
That's a beautiful cover, 100%. I got to say, I say it every week. I'm a diehard John Byrne fan. I love John Byrne fan. He was the first artist where I was like, oh wait, there are different artists that do these comic books. And they don't all look the same. And like, that was the first time that's the first artist that stuck out to me. And I've been attached to him ever since. So
that was my first name. That was my first comic creator name I ever noticed too. Like, oh, John Byrne. I like everything this guy does.
Robbie, I knew we were best friends from the beginning. I knew it. Absolutely. By the way, how awesome is the cover for X-Men number 4? It is pretty awesome. Carcom comic. Toby has 2 of those, number 3 and number 8, which would be Uncanny X-Men 282 and X-Men number 4. Planet Arizona Comics. He's 4 for 10. Thank God for 80s comics. Okay. All right. Anyways, moving on. So, Chris, this is your time, man. This is your time to shine. This is where you dive into the 3 most interesting issues off of this list. So why don't we just get into it, Chris? Let's just have at it.
Wow. Well, man, what do I got to say? There was at least 4 on the list that were on the list last week again. So we got some repeats, which is cool. Some books staying hot. I looked at this list and there were some that I really wanted to put on, and I just said, I got to buckle down. My first book, my number 3, Ultimates number 1. All right, so let's talk about this book. Ultimates number 1 is the first appearance of Ayo, who was the Wakandan warrior that we saw her in the MCU prior, but she showed up. Spoilers for those that aren't watching the show. She showed up at the end of episode 3 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. That is pushed sales of this book up. Now, it's really interesting how much hype this book got in such short a time. But this is where we're at right now. This is how much people are paying attention to absolutely anything. I mean, we've seen her in the MCU before. We've seen her in Black Panther, but this book really didn't have any momentum until this episode last Friday. So, and then let's look at the numbers. A High Raw sold for $50. That's pretty solid, man. It's a solid jump. So again, it goes to show that there's collectors of all sorts, people that want to speculate, maybe just have a bit of that FOMO, right? And they are holding on to everything, every single thing. But none of that is why I picked this book. None of that is. You want to know why I picked this book? Because this is the first Ultimate Team appearance with Captain Marvel, Spectrum, and America Chavez. There's even an appearance from Blue Adam in it. So what's funny is that this book is getting hyped over just an appearance of a character in a TV show now, a character that doesn't, I mean, it's, she's not, unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa or even Shuri, but people are hopping all over it. That's not why I picked this. What's funny is that this book could absolutely be a spec book related to what certain properties in the future of the MCU might look like. Because for the last 13 years, you guys have to understand the MCU brings in a lot of the Ultimate Universe. A lot more than I think people actually understand, right? And we're 13 years in after Endgame. We don't have Steve Rogers, right? We don't have Tony Stark. We don't have Black Widow. So, there's a lot of things being set up, like the Young Avengers, which it seems obvious at this point that there's going to be a Young Avengers team coming up. I don't see a Young Avengers team taking over that big team, though, for those big movies, right? But when you talk about the Ultimates, who did I say? Captain Marvel, right? Carol Danvers, Spectrum. We just got introduced to Monica Rambeau. She's on fire. Loved her in WandaVision. Black Panther. Now I know that's crushing every time I talk about it. We don't have Chadwick and T'Challa anymore, but you can bring in Shuri and place her in there, or whoever might pick up the Black Panther mantle. M'Baku, you never know, right? America Chavez. We have the announcement of Riri already. And I do believe we might have Silk coming into play, even if it's a Sony property. You never know. I absolutely believe that America Chavez could show up in the MCU sometime soon. This book could be a sleeping giant that might be hot for the wrong reason right now.
Very interesting. By the way, just to be clear, this isn't from the Ultimate Universe. This is the Ultimates from the 616. They created this team. But I hear you, man. Is it fair to say that you think people are just jumping the gun on this issue?
Not at all, because I wouldn't say that, because I think it's still two different very at play here. They're not even looking at all the other context. They're not looking at the entire context. They just saw one character in they got their Key Collector app, or they're Googling, first appearance of Ayo, and boom, there it is. Okay, I'm going to buy it. And then demand seeps in, starts driving the price up. I'm going to assume that maybe some of them don't even know that this is the first team appearance with those characters. Yeah. And of course, the Ultimates is based on the Ultimate Universe bringing in the Ultimates team as a replacement for the Avengers, because it was Cap and Iron Man and so forth, but they weren't called the Avengers. They were called the Ultimates. So, but yeah, I just think it's like people probably aren't even noticing the entire context of what this book is, and you never know that those things could come into play later on in the MCU.
Zora's Tiger, me and Chris are on the same page. I got it too a while back for cheap for the first team appearance of the Ultimates. Ayo's first appearance was a bonus. Robbie, what are your thoughts quickly before we move on to Chris's next book?
I think that there is potential to see some of these characters form a team in the MCU, and if they called them the Ultimates, then this will definitely jump back up like crazy. So yeah, I think it's decent, but I wouldn't overpay for this one right now.
I agree there too. That's why I think people are jumping the gun, paying $50 an issue for that. I don't know. Anyways, all right, Chris, moving on. You have a second book of the week. What is it, Chris? What is it?
Absolutely. And just to make clear, I say this almost every week too. I don't just pick these books because I think that they're hot or that, you should go out and get them. I pick them because I find very interesting talking points for each of them, right? So
that's right. He picks the 3 most interesting books from the list. And I preface that all the time. And I'm glad Chris is reinforcing it. We do not tell you guys to pick up books. We say, hey, in our opinion, this thing's going to be hot, but we're never telling you do this or do that. It's up to you guys what you guys want to do.
Right. And what's funny, I just want to add here real quick. I will never, and I've said this before, I say this on my channel, I will never tell you to buy a book. I will never tell you to buy a book. I will never tell you that a book is guaranteed to increase in value, because nothing's ever guaranteed to increase in value. And I will never tell you or put in a title of one of my videos to buy a book before it's too late. Never.
But you're saying this now, but there could be one exception, and the bearded one. Warlock #1.
Yes, that's the only one. That's the only one that no. That's Warlock in the Infinity Watch. Make sure they know the right one. Buy that book, buy multiple copies, and buy it right now before it's too late.
All right.
There, that's it. That's the only time you're going to hear me say it.
All right, but moving on to the second most interesting book.
But we got to fill Robbie in. We got to fill Robbie in. On the Warlock.
Yeah, go.
Please do.
Jeff, I was giving you the honors, Jeff, because I can't.
I'm happy to do it. My dog is like panting over here. I don't know if he's struggling for air, but so Robbie, Chris has a problem, and it's Warlock and the Infinity Watch #1, and he cannot stop buying this book. He easily has 25 to 30 copies of this book. And he is very excited each and every time he gets it. I just want to let you know, the audience knows this as well. And there, as you can see by the bearded one, again, Warlock #1. Do it.
Jeff, I think it's only like 21 or 22 though.
I'm sorry, but the bearded one is what we call an enabler. Moving on to the second most interesting.
All right. Number two on my list. Oh my gosh. I couldn't not pick this book. Thundercats #1. Guys, Thundercats. I mean, come on, man. How anybody our age, Robbie was talking about Jim. I mean, we grew up on Transformers and this is just, man, Thundercats. I remember like 10 years ago when YouTube still didn't have widescreen video. I found all of the original episodes on some YouTube channel, and I was just watching them on YouTube. Thundercats. What can I say about Thundercats? I had all the toys, had the sword, and Thundercats is something that very similar to Transformers will stick with me and a lot of us for the rest of our lives. And Thundercats, I feel, have been kind of done unjustly. They had that, Cartoon Network reboot that I thought was just a mockery of the Thundercats. But we finally got an announcement from the Hollywood Reporter that Warner Brothers finally is moving forward with the live-action Thundercat film. And like we discussed last week, Jeff, by the Godzilla vs. Kong director, Adam Wingard. Very, very excited. Wingard is a huge Thundercats fan. He was going on and about, how this has been something he's wanted to do since he was a kid. So really looking forward to that. Obviously, that pushed this book, up to where it's at this week. We saw a 287% increase in sales. Get this, blows my mind. And I talked about this a lot recently about the 9.8, hysteria right now. A 9.8 high sale of this book sold for $1,600. Just absolutely crazy. So again, I say, I'm very happy for this book. I wouldn't pay $1,600 for this book in a 9.8. But I'm very happy that Thundercats is getting some love, and I really can't wait for this movie. It's like years.
100%. It's this 80s love, right? I mean, God, it's near and dear to all of our hearts. And Tack brings up a good point. Another property is Silverhawks. That's not even a joke. That was another one that's loved there too. Robbie, what are your thoughts on Thundercats?
Well, the Silverhawks is a good pickup because first of all, Silverhawks is just BA, and it's actually in a shared universe with Thundercats.
Yes.
So if they do this Thundercats movie, maybe they try to set up some Silverhawks, which I think would be super cool to have a nice hard sci-fi adventure Silverhawks, which would be great. Might as well pick up Mask #1.
Yep.
Pick up Heathcliff #1. Who cares, right? Because they're great
Care Bears.
Those Star books were amazing. I remember being a kid and just loving them. I read the He-Man one. I read Thundercats. I read Heathcliff. I love that stuff. Even Rainbow Bright, get that, buy it. Because they're going to do something with that one day. But
they're my dogs.
Thundercats is always a great pickup.
They're they're cheering us
on. But a Thundercats movie is going to be cool as long as they don't look like the cast of Cats.
They said they're not.
But it could actually look like the cast of Cats, and I think it would still be cool too. They could even sing. But Thundercats is such a great property. They're going to do something with it. And if you are near a dingy, dirty comic shop that's been in business for 20 plus years, go hunt their back issues and their dollar bins for this.
Absolutely. Yo, Primetime Treasure Hunter, our good friend Dom, he just listed Thundercats 1 and 2 newsstand and a #3 on eBay this week. Dom, you got to let us know what happens with that one. Very curious to see what happens. Absolutely. Who else we got here? Tom also says there's a Mad Balls limited series. There really was.
I gotta get that. I gotta get that now.
Yeah, Mad Balls. My God. All right, we are 80s kids. All right, moving on, Chris. Yeah. This is your third pick of the week that you find interesting off of this list. Not saying to buy this. The most interesting pick here. This is your third one. Let's go. What do you got?
I bet everyone watching right now is thinking I'm going with that Strange Tales 179 because we all know I've been showing off my Strange Tales books. I'm talking about my addiction to Warlock. It's really not an addiction, but it is. But I did not pick Warlock. I didn't pick the Strange Tales 179. I picked Uncanny X-Men 282. Yes, I did. This is the first cameo appearance of Gambit, but it's his first cover appearance. So let's just talk about some things first and foremost. Okay. First, this is an interesting book because you have a cameo appearance, but it's also a first cover appearance of a character. This rarely happens. The first full appearance came in the next issue. He was also on the cover of that. But this book, this shows that covers do matter. Covers do matter. Because I obviously, if Bishop wasn't on the cover of this book, it would be just another kind of bland cameo book. 283 would probably be that book to look at. But here's the thing. This book, I'm going to tell you the numbers, and then we're going to talk about it. CGC 9.8 high sale, $515.
Holy cow.
Wow. Robbie was just talking about earlier about how this is an early 90s book. It's not in short supply. I'm assuming there's probably at least anywhere from 300 to 500,000 copies of this book. Here's the thing. I love Bishop. Because I was reading X-Men when he came out, and I was watching the animated series. And I loved what they did, the Days of Future Past that they did in the animated series and how they brought Bishop into that. And I fell in love with the character. I liked seeing him in he was first shown in the Days of Future Past in the Fox film. Very minor role though, almost really wasn't there. But another reason why I think this book is getting hot right now is because I've been talking about it. X-Men. I'm pick up, Havoc, to Polaris, all of these, even the Silver Age ones that have a lot of potential to grow in value. Look at characters that we didn't necessarily see at all or much of in the Fox films. Mr. Sinister, another one, right? His book has been underrated for a long time, and it's finally picking up momentum. I think Bishop's another one that can come and play a bigger role in an X-Men franchise in the MCU. Time travel, that's being shown in the MCU right now. And X-Men spec books and first appearances are just hot right now. Jubilee, that's another one. Even Dazzler. I mean, anything. All of these books are gaining more and are gaining more attention and traction right now. So why not Bishop? Here's the thing I'm going to talk about, though. I was in a conversation on an Instagram post about somebody saying, Uncanny X-Men 282 was not worth, I think at this point, like the high sale was like $400 in the CGC 9.8. And I said, yeah, it is. He's like, no way, there's no way it's worth $400. I'm like, yes, it is. Well, actually, it's worth $515. It's worth that much money. Why? Because somebody paid that much. Is it going to be worth $515 tomorrow? Maybe not. But right now, the book is worth $515, whether you like it or not. Anything on the market is worth what somebody is willing to pay, regardless if you're wanting to pay that or not. That is basic supply and demand and the free market doing its thing. The question that we pose, though, and Robbie brought this up, is when you talk about supply, I also always talk about this too. Supply isn't just print run. Supply is any given amount available on the market at a time. So if this book had 400,000 copies printed, but collectors count for maybe a certain thousand of them were destroyed, and maybe, there's 250,000 people that are holding on to their copies, right? So there's only, say, a couple 100,000 out there on the market right now. So you never really know what the actual supply is at any given moment. Now, if somebody does have, say, 1,000 of these issues and they decide to sell tomorrow and they put them all on eBay tomorrow, that could drive the value of this book down because supply and demand. Anytime demand exceeds supply, it's going to drive the price up. Anytime supply exceeds demand, it's going to drive the price down. More modern books, and I would call this more of a end copper age. I think this is a 91, came out in 91. So I would consider that a copper age book, but any of these more modern books or 90s books, obviously more volatile. We don't know what this can do in the long run, but look, one thing that this current market is telling people is that two things. There's a lot of people getting into this hobby to invest and they're willing to spend money. And on the flip side of that, regardless of what people believe, there's a lot of people holding on to books as well. So again, I enjoy seeing X-Men books, especially 90s books, get some love. It blows my mind sometimes. I have the book. I have a couple copies. Would I pay $550 for a 9.8? Absolutely not. But hey, the hobby is alive and thriving, and that's all I can say.
Robbie, would you pay $515 for 9.8?
Oh, hell no. I already have one. I would just press that out for like $10 or something,
There you go.
No, I mean, you make some really good points there, Chris. And how many are sitting in comic book collections in attics? Or because everybody bought this stuff. Everybody was buying X-Men comics back then. So you're right. You never know how many are actually out there, nor how many 9.8s. Now you can do some research and find out that, like how many exist with the CGC database and all that stuff. But that's even more rare. So once again, the point being, one of the reasons why this is such a fun book is that you can find this in the wild. You can find this at a shop. You can find this at a yard sale. You can find this at your friend's house. Oh yeah, I got these old comics from when I was a kid. Well, let me take a look at them. Yo, I'll give you $5 and a Pop-Tart for this box. You know what I'm saying? And then you can find it in the wild. Then you can press it, clean it, get it CGC 9.8, and that feels great, right? And then you can sell it and buy 10 more copies if you want, or buy however many copies of Warlock and the Infinity Watch #1 you want, and continue to use the hobby to fund the hobby, which is really, really a great thing to do.
Yeah, that absolutely. I think a lot of us strive for that. But I'll tell you what, though, Chris, going back to your point, this kind of like what I like to call like the third wave of X-Men. You have, the first wave being the original Kirby and first 100 issues. You have giant size X-Men, and then you have this kind of Jim Lee, Will Sportatio kind of era right there, which seems to be like, where Gambit came in, Bishop came in, all those, a variety of other characters. You're going to want to look for those characters. The third wave of characters, like those are probably the ones Feige is going to start looking at. I mean, he's already started looking at, because they're not going to want to replicate what Fox did. Right. I don't think. I mean, what do you got? Robbie, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Initially, a lot of people think, well, maybe what if they just did the first 5, like the actual first class, right? They're not going to do that. What Disney and Marvel stand for. They stand for inclusion and diversity, and they're going to try to bring as many different people in there. Sunfire, he's a little bit more old school, but, that's a possibility. What is the most famous black male X-Man? It's Bishop. You know what I'm saying? Like, there you go. So, like, when they start putting together these teams, I don't think it's just going to be the original 5. They're going to try to make it a little bit more diverse, to go way different than what Fox did, because Marvel doesn't like to replicate except for themselves. So yeah, I think the third wave, what you're talking about, like the Deadpool at Cable and onward, right? Those are easy to find. Yeah, I would tell everybody this, right? I don't know anything or whatever, but I'm just saying, buy the first appearance of Maggot. Why? Because he's the most underappreciated X-Men character ever. And you never know what Kevin Feige has up his crazy sleeve. You never know.